All right, peace to everyone, and welcome to 2022. Today, I wanted to talk about UFC Vegas 46. The main event was Calvin Kattar versus Chikadze, and what a great fight, right? I think this is the first fight of 2022 for the UFC, particularly on ESPN. I don't think they've had any pay-per-views thus far, but it was a great fight. I watched it twice, and I wanted to see every little intricacy so I could really talk about it in a way that does it justice. So I just want to say right off the top, kudos to Calvin Kattar. He came out with a great game plan right from the beginning and really put the pressure on Chikadze. And I think that was the key to the win, amongst many other things. That was the key. The pressure pushing Chikadze back as a kickboxer was a great idea, and it because when you think about it, not many people can kick going backwards. It's one thing to punch going backwards, right? You can box fighting, backwards and counter punch that way. But when you're a kicker, when you're a kickboxer, your legs are part of what is going to have you moving back. So if you're throwing kicks, it's kind of counterproductive, right? So it makes it a lot harder to do. So excellent game plan to do that, and it really minimized, as the rounds went on, it minimized any possibility of kicks really being effective. And if you take that away, it became a boxing match and a grappling match, right? So, and that would favor Calvin because he's much more experienced in both areas. He's not a grappler by trade. He's more of a boxer, but he's a better grappler than Chikadze is, and more willing to grapple than Chikadze is. So I think that's where the win for him was going to be very apparent if it stayed the course, which it ended up doing. Another layer to the win was Calvin's consistency with throwing strikes. He never let there be too much time between him striking. So not only did he control the pace of where Chikadze was going by pushing him back, he also created a pace of who was going to lead in terms of the strikes. And as a striker, that is going to be key, especially if you throw a lot of punches. And which he did. He threw a lot of punches, and he kept the pace, and he kept it's a mental game at that point, right? You're playing the game of, okay, who's gonna look good in terms of the judges, in terms of who's controlling, because that's a layer of judging, right? Who's controlling the fight, and that level of control was very clear going in Calvin's favor, and he took control of it, right off the bat, from the footwork to the striking and how often the strikes would happen. Now, to Chikadze's credit, he was firing back as much as he could. In the midst of moving back and changing angles, he did have some flurries where he would throw, three, four, five, and six punches at a time, really land some nasty stuff. But it didn't deter Kattar at all to keep doing the same thing he was doing. And eventually that pressure put Chikadze in a position where he wasn't throwing a lot of punches. So it didn't amount to much later on. So he had a lot of heart, because even up to the final bell, he was throwing, he was trying to, mount an attack of his own, but you could feel the energy, you could look at the expression that he was already, it was a defeat. It was a defeat. He wasn't defeated, but the law, he was going to take a loss, right? And there wasn't much that he could do to stop Kattar from coming and to impose his will on him. Now, for Kattar, another layer to his win was his jab. Consistently throwing the jab, and didn't load up on the jab. That's the thing. He didn't load up, fire hard. It was in the midst of his, very consistent attack and very consistent striking attack. And he just kept throwing the jab, just jab, jab. And after a while, that did the most damage. There were some other things thrown, like there were a ton of elbows. There were, you know, a lot of things that he was doing to inflict damage. But if you really looked at it, the jab did the most damage because he kept touching. That punch touched him more times than any other punch he threw, and it was just wearing him down. So then when the big punch or the big elbows came, it would bust him open. It would, you know, cause more, you know, damage, you know, because of the bigger shot landing on top of the smaller one. So it was nasty. It was nasty, man. So the jab, again, when everything came down to it and it turned into a boxing match because of the pressure and the lack of kicks coming back because of that pressure, it became a boxing match. And then the jab, most important punch in boxing, played the most effective punch to win for Kattar. Now the judges had it 50-45. One judge even had it 50-44. So it pretty much was a shutout for Kattar. And I think they got it right. There really wasn't any round that you could say that Chikadze won, because even if he had some flurries, Kattar answered back and then also ended the round usually in a position where he looked like he controlled the last minute of that round. You know, so if the round was even for 4 minutes, because 5 minutes a round, if the round was even for 4 minutes and, you know, there was some flurries back and forth and, you know, Chikadze kind of maybe could have evened it up, the last minute Kattar had a chance to either, you know, put him on the ground or land some strikes at the very end of that last minute to make it look like, no, he's not turning the tide. So, listen, I don't know where these guys go from here. I mean, they're probably going to need some time off because they both were beat up, you know, and you know, kudos to both guys because they really put their heart into this fight, and it was back and forth. You know, again, it was a clear win for Kattar, but Chikadze is no joke. It just was the wrong matchup at the end of the day. The game plan was great for Kattar. It worked out for him, and for Chikadze, he's going to have to just go back to the drawing board and figure out how he handles that type of pressure going forward. Because, you know, after this is going to be something people look at because he was a top prospect. He had a 7-0 win streak in the UFC, undefeated. So, you know, he's going to kind of get a chance to get right back in the mix. And, you know, depending on how soon that happens, he's going to have to answer how to deal with that kind of pressure. But I think, you know, he can do it. He did show some great takedown defense. But now he has to find a way to impose his offense more against someone who's going to try to impose it on him. Like, how does he make that adjustment? I think how he makes the adjustment is you can't circle when you're fighting like that. You have to make sharper turns, and when you make the sharper turn, you become the guy in the position to take and put pressure back. So once you do that, you can now afford to throw your kicks, because for a second you got the other guy in a position that is going back because you changed the hard angle. So now he has to adjust to you. That's a key thing in striking in any sport, boxing, kickboxing, you know, is that you can't always be running in a circle, because at the end of the day, circles can be cut off. If you're good at cutting guys off, the circle can be cut off. So at some point you have to change and make a sharper turn and make that person be in a position where they're against the ropes / cage or whatever, and you take the center, and then you can strike. And then if they decide to retake it, you just rinse and repeat that. So then it's you're trading positions at times instead of constantly being the one going outside of the you know, the perimeter of the ring. So that's my 2 cents. That's all I got today. Great fight. Both guys, you know, did their thing. So let's see what goes from here, where they go from here. And like, subscribe, and see you guys on the next video. Peace.